I'm going to read to you today Flat Stanley by Jeff Brown. Chapter 1. Big Bulletin Board. Breakfast was ready. "I will go and wake the boys," Mrs. Lambchop said to her husband, George Lambchop. Just then their younger son Arthur called from the bedroom he shared with his brother Stanley. "Hey, come and look! Hey!" Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop were both very much in favour of politeness and careful speech. Hay is for horses, Arthur, not people, Mr. Lambchop said as they entered the bedroom. "Try to remember that." "Excuse me," Arthur said, "but look." He pointed to Stanley's bed. Across it lay this enormous bulletin board that Mr. Lambchop had given the boys a Christmas ago, so that they could pin up pictures and messages and maps. It had fallen during the night on top of Stanley. But Stanley was not hurt. In fact, he would still have been sleeping if he had not been woken by his brother's shout. "What's going on here?" he called out cheerfully from beneath the enormous board. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop hurried to lift it from the bed. "Heavens!" said Mrs. Lambchop. "Gosh!" said Arthur. "Stanley's flat." "As a pancake," said Mr. Lambchop. "Darndest thing I have ever seen." "Let's all have breakfast," Mrs. Lambchop said. "Then Stanley will go and see Dr. Dan and hear what he has to say." The examination was almost over. "How do you feel?" Dr. Dan asked. "Does it hurt very much?" "I felt sort of tickly for a while after I got up," Stanley Lambchop said, "but I feel fine now." "Well, that's mostly how it is in these cases," said Dr. Dan. "We'll just have to keep an eye on this young fellow," he said, when he had finished the examination. "Sometimes we doctors, despite all of our years of training and experience, can only marvel at how little we really know." Mrs. Lambchop said she thought that Stanley's clothes would have to be altered by the tailor now, so Dr. Dan told his nurses to take Stanley's measurements. Mrs. Lambchop wrote them down. Stanley was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and half an inch thick.